As we ready to ring in the new year, 2023 will go down in history as having signaled to the world a more confident, a more assertive India that seeks to leverage its growing clout to push for a more inclusive, a more even world order. Over the next half hour, we take a look at India's journey in 2023 as it took center stage on the global rostrum. It isn't India alone that's changing. The world continues to remain in constant flux, marked by conflicts, growing uncertainties, and resultant complexities. From the Israel-Hamas conflict to the coronation of King Charles III in the United Kingdom and the arrest of former US President Donald Trump, the global stage witnessed a spectrum of developments in 2023.
After the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, another major global conflict erupted this year with the Israel-Hamas conflict, breaking out in Gaza when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel on October 7, leaving over 1,200 Israelis dead and thousands more injured. The retaliatory assault on Gaza by Israel has resulted in devastating casualties, with nearly 20,000 Palestinians killed, tens of thousands wounded, and a staggering 90% of Enclave's 2.3 million residents displaced. Efforts by the United Nations, including a recent humanitarian ceasefire vote, have faced challenges in translating into effective actions on the ground as the conflict rages on. The World Health Organization declared the end of global emergency status for COVID-19 on May 5, over 3 years since its initial declaration. The COVID death rate had significantly declined from its peak in 2021, but concerns have risen with the emergence of the JN.1 COVID variant, prompting heightened vigilance and precautionary measures by the governments around the world. In April, the United Nations announced that India had surpassed China to be the world's most populous country with an estimated 1.43 billion people. China has held this title for nearly a century. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan was arrested on May 9 from within the High Court in Islamabad. The National Accountability Bureau detained Khan over corruption allegations. The Supreme Court of Pakistan, however, ruled the arrest as unlawful. Since 2022, the cricketer turned politician has been named in more than 150 legal cases with charges ranging from corruption to terrorism. At the beginning of August, Imran Khan was arrested for the second time for a separate corruption case. He was handed a 3-year prison sentence in absentia that also bans Khan from holding political office for the next 5 years. The arrest and subsequent legal proceedings have stirred significant political turmoil in Pakistan. King Charles III was formally crowned as the 40th British monarch in the 2-hour ceremony at Westminster Abbey on May 6th. The event, watched by millions globally, reflects the traditions of nearly 1,000 years. While Charles ascended to the throne after Queen Elizabeth II's death in September 2022, the official coronation took place this year. The ascension of the 74-year-old monarch marks the first UK coronation in 70 years. February 24, 2023 marked 1 year of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. An analysis by Center for Strategic and International Studies on the day revealed that Russia suffered more combat deaths in Ukraine during the first year of the conflict than in all its wars since World War II combined. The average rate of Russian soldiers killed per month was also notably higher than in previous conflicts, highlighting the mammoth toll of the war of attrition. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States, was formally arrested on August 25th at Atlanta's Fulton County Jail after he turned himself into Georgia authorities. Trump is facing racketeering and conspiracy charges connected to his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in Georgia, which he lost to Joe Biden. The charges include violating Georgia's Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, along with 6 conspiracy counts related to alleged forgery attempts, impersonation of public officials, and submission of false statements and documents. Skipping the body searches and handcuffing, Trump was fingerprinted and his mugshot was taken. He spent 20 minutes in the jail before getting bail. In a historic shift, Javier Milei won the Argentine presidential elections in 2023 with the widest margin of victory ever observed in the country since 1983. Milei identifies as a liberal libertarian and aligns himself with monarchist and anarcho-capitalist principles. Milei's proposals for Argentina, which is grappling with skyrocketing inflation, include reducing the size of the government, dollarizing the economy, and eliminating the central bank. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan secured victory in a historic runoff election against opponent Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. The win confirms his third 5-year term in power. Erdogan won with 4.5 percentage points over his opponent at a time when there had been growing grievances against the leader. Erdogan's win came amid a battered economy and a cost of living crisis in Turkey, which according to experts have been exacerbated by his unorthodox economic policies. Anti-Islam populist Geert Wilders won a huge victory in Dutch elections in a stunning lurch to the far right for a nation once famed as a beacon of tolerance. The result sent shockwaves through Europe, where far-right ideology is on the rise.
The year 2023 was undoubtedly a significant year for India, from the successful hosting of the G20 summit to the landing on the moon. India continued to demonstrate its criticality as a swing power. It also demonstrated its role as a leader of the global south, hosting a successful G20 summit amidst a trying international environment was clearly a diplomatic success for India.
September 2023 marked a truly historic moment for India as it hosted the G20 summit in New Delhi. The 18th summit meeting held at the Bharat Mandapam was the culmination of the over 200 meetings held across the length and breadth of the country during India's year-long presidency of the grouping of the 20 biggest economies of the world. It was the first G20 summit held in India, marking many firsts achieved at the Delhi summit. The Global Biofuel Alliance and India-Middle East Europe Economic Corridor were just a few of these. Modi's guarantee rang true and the African Union got a place as a permanent member of the G20.
It is a matter of particular satisfaction for us that the African Union has this morning become a permanent member of the G20, that too during the Indian presidency. This is in keeping with the priority that we attach to addressing the urgent concerns of the global south.
while navigating a very difficult geopolitical terrain given the heightened tensions between the West and Russia over Ukraine. India succeeded in getting a balanced Delhi declaration that called for peace and restraint as the way forward.
All countries have unanimously supported the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration. This is one declaration without a single footnote and without any chair's summary. This is a complete statement with 100% unanimity.
India's G20 presidency prioritized inclusivity and outreach. Alongside the official meetings, the summit saw the engagement of various stakeholders, including civil society organizations, youth groups and businesses. India's soft power clearly seemed to working at these meetings. The results of the summit were transformative, energizing the international economy, greater availability of resources for development, expanded tourism, opportunities in the global workplace, stronger food security through millet production and consumption, and a deeper commitment to biofuels were amongst them. During the concluding session of the New Delhi G20 summit on 10th of September, Prime Minister Modi announced a virtual G20 Leaders Summit. This virtual summit was held in November, in which discussions were held to take forward the key selected outcomes and action points of the New Delhi summit. Also included discussion on the deliberations of the second Voice of the Global South Summit.
21वीं सदी के विश्व को आगे बढ़ते हुए ग्लोबल साउथ की चिंताओं को सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता देनी होगी। ग्लोबल साउथ के देश ऐसी अनेक कठिनाइयों से गुजर रहे हैं जिनके लिए वे जिम्मेदार नहीं है।
India's G20 presidency theme, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, meaning the world is one family, clearly paid off as world leaders were able to arrive at a consensus, which many initially thought would remain elusive in the New Delhi Declaration. The successful hosting of the G20 summit showcased India's growing leadership role on the world stage. It demonstrated the country's commitment to multilateralism, its ability to bring diverse stakeholders together, and its willingness to tackle complex global challenges. As India looks beyond its G20 presidency, it carries the hopes and aspirations of a world yearning for a more sustainable, equitable, and prosperous future. It clearly puts the global south at the heart of the global agenda.
The most important aspect of India's foreign policy was its global outreach, engaging with the world, not just in multilateral formats, but also bilaterally.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Hiroshima in Japan and participated in the annual summit of the G7 grouping and the third in-person Quad leaders meeting in May this year. On the sidelines of the G7 summit, the PM held a series of bilateral meetings with the leadership of Japan and France. He also met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the summit. At the G7 summit, the Indian Prime Minister expressed his commitment to represent and pursue the interests of the global South. Prime Minister Modi engaged in discussions on global changes and challenges, specifically in the areas of energy, digital technology, and supply chains. In the Quad leaders meeting, he discussed about developments in the Indo-Pacific region. In this context, the leaders released the Quad political vision statement, Sustainable Partners for the Indo-Pacific region. Prime Minister Modi stressed the importance of strengthening the constructive agenda of the Quad and delivering concrete results for the region. The PM also invited the Quad leaders to visit India for the next Quad summit to be held in 2024.
कई देश और समूह अपनी इंडो पैसिफिक रणनीति और विजन की घोषणा कर रहे हैं। आज की हमारी बैठक में इस पूरे क्षेत्र के समावेशी और पीपल सेंट्रिक विकास के जुड़े विषयों पर चर्चा करने का अवसर मिलेगा। मेरा मानना है कि क्वाड वैश्विक भलाई, मानव कल्याण, शांति और समृद्धि के लिए निरंतर प्रयत्न करता रहेगा।
During the second leg of his journey, Prime Minister Modi reached Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister James Marape received Prime Minister Modi at the airport, and as a mark of respect, he bowed and touched Prime Minister Modi's feet. This was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Papua New Guinea. During this visit, Prime Minister Modi jointly hosted the third summit of the Forum for Indo-Pacific Islands Cooperation with Prime Minister James Marape. And on the third and last leg of his journey, the Prime Minister reached Sydney in Australia. Earlier in March, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese had come to India, and both the leaders had demonstrated cricket diplomacy at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad by watching the India-Australia match. PM Albanese had also played the Festival of Colours Holi with great enthusiasm while in India. In Sydney, the two leaders discussed wide-ranging topics like renewable energy, defence, strategic partnership and trade. They also committed to focus on firming up a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement that's expected to significantly expand bilateral trade ties. Prime Minister Modi also held meetings with CEOs and prominent business leaders in Australia, where he called for enhancing cooperation with the Indian industry in areas such as technology, skilling and clean energy. The PM also interacted with the Indian diaspora in Sydney. The highlight of the community event was Australian Prime Minister Albanese calling PM Modi the boss.
I said to my friend the Prime Minister before, the last time I saw someone on the stage here was Bruce Springsteen, and he didn't get the welcome that Prime Minister Modi has got. Prime Minister Modi is the boss.
Prime Minister Modi also spoke of India's developmental journey.
आज भारत के हर कदम, हर उपलब्धियों के बारे में दुनिया जानना चाहती है। आज की दुनिया जिस वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर की तरफ जा रही है, जिन संभावनाओं को तलाश रही है, उसमें ये स्वाभाविक भी है। भारत हजारों वर्षों की जीवंत सभ्यता है। भारत मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी है। हमने समय के अनुसार खुद को ढाला है, लेकिन अपने मूल सिद्धांतों पर, फंडामेंटल्स पर हमेशा टिके रहे हैं।
Prime Minister Modi visited America in June at the invitation of US President Joe Biden. The PM also celebrated International Yoga Day with the UN leadership and members of the international community at the UN headquarters in New York on the 21st of June. Here the PM met with people from academia, think tanks and businesses, including the founder of electric car company Tesla Inc. and commercial space exploration company SpaceX Elon Musk. After this, the Indian PM reached Washington DC to kick off the main part of his first state visit to the United States. US President Joe Biden hailed India-US ties while rolling out the pomp and pageantry for Prime Minister Modi. This included marching bands, a lavish vegetarian dinner and a 21-gun salute on the south lawn of the White House. Prime Minister Modi, who was on a state visit, also addressed the US Congress, where he received multiple standing ovations. The US President called the India-US relationship as one of the defining relationships of the 21st century. PM Modi agreed, telling the US Congress that this was a coming together of the world's two great democracies. He also said that the friendship between the two countries would be instrumental in enhancing the strength of the entire world. He said a new chapter had been added to the two countries' comprehensive and global strategic partnership.
I agree with President Biden that this is a defining partnership of this country, because it serves a larger purpose: democracy, demography, and destiny give us the purpose.
On the last leg of his journey, Prime Minister Modi reached Egypt. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also attended the Republic Day celebrations as the chief guest in January. During the visit of President Sisi, the partnership was elevated to the level of a strategic partnership. In July, at the invitation of French President Emmanuel Macron, the Indian Prime Minister visited Paris, where he was the chief guest at the Bastille Parade on the 14th of July. A tri-service contingent of the Indian Armed Forces was also part of the Bastille Day Parade. After this, Prime Minister Modi visited Abu Dhabi, where the Prime Minister held talks with the President of the United Arab Emirates and ruler of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The talks focused on further strengthening of the India-UAE comprehensive strategic partnership, especially in critical sectors such as energy, education, healthcare, food security, fintech and defense. In August, Prime Minister Modi participated in the 15th BRICS Summit in Johannesburg in South Africa, where leaders from the five-nation bloc announced the historical decision to expand the grouping. Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, Argentina and the United Arab Emirates would join the bloc starting in 2024. Here, Prime Minister Modi also participated in the BRICS Africa Outreach and BRICS Plus Dialogue events. After this, Prime Minister Modi reached Athens in Greece at the invitation of Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis. This was the PM's first visit to Greece and the first by an Indian Prime Minister in 40 years. In December, PM Modi participated in the Conference of Parties 28 or COP28 in Dubai. In his address, PM Modi noted that climate change has had an immense impact on countries in the global south. He pitched for the world to join India on its Green Credit Initiative, which was a non-commercial effort to create a carbon sink. PM Modi also offered to host the 33rd edition of the annual summit due in 2028 in India. In November, India and the United States of America agreed to expand their global strategic partnership by shoring up engagement in areas of defense production, critical minerals and high technology, besides focusing on the situation arising out of the Israel-Hamas conflict and China's military muscle flexing in the Indo-Pacific. The India-US 2+2 Foreign and Defense Ministerial Dialogue was held in New Delhi. The American delegation at the 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue talks was led by Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, while External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh headed the Indian side. India and Australia also held the second 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue in November in New Delhi, where Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar noted that there is real momentum in the India-Australia Comprehensive Strategic Partnership.
But the real test of diplomacy is in times of crisis. India not only rescued its own citizens stranded in disaster and conflict zones, but also extended a helping hand to other nations in their hour of crisis.
When Sudan's airspace closed due to intense fighting between Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces in April, India launched Operation Kaveri to evacuate its citizens stranded in that country. Indian citizens living in different parts of Sudan were first brought to Port Sudan by road, from where they boarded Indian Navy ships to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and from Indian Air Force planes brought them back to India. As the war between Israel and terrorist organization Hamas intensified, India, without wasting any time, launched Operation Ajay for Indians wishing to return to India. India deployed chartered flights to bring back Indians from Tel Aviv. Not only were Indian citizens evacuated from conflict zones, India provided relief to other countries struck by natural disasters and conflicts. After a devastating earthquake hit Turkey, India set an example of friendship by running Operation Dost, providing urgent relief material and emergency medicines. India continues to send humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people as the Israel-Hamas conflict rages on. This timely help was acknowledged world over, with many countries bestowing upon Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the highest honours of their country. In a special ceremony held at the Government House in Port Moresby, the capital of Papua New Guinea, the Governor-General of Papua New Guinea honoured Prime Minister Narendra Modi with the country's highest civilian honour, Grand Companion of the Order of Logu. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi honoured Prime Minister Narendra Modi with Egypt's highest civilian award, Order of the Nile, at a special ceremony held at the Presidency in Cairo. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the first Indian to receive this award. This year, French President Emmanuel Macron honoured Prime Minister Narendra Modi with France's highest award, Grand Cross of the Lion of Honour. President of Greece, Katerina Sekeleropoulou, conferred the Grand Cross of the Order of Honour on Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
A nation can be powerful in military or economic terms without having any real ability to influence or change the thinking of other power centers. That clearly wasn't the case for India. It increasingly demonstrated its ability to get what it wants on the global stage. We saw that unfold in 2023, and that's the exact promise that India holds for itself and the world in 2024, to push for a fair, equitable, new world order. That's it for me. Thanks for watching, and have a very happy and prosperous new year. Namaskar.